My God! Cried Fernando Iturbide as he opened the door to his son's room. The scene he saw left him completely paralyzed. His baby, Sebastian, just 3 months old, was in the arms of the maid, Guadalupe Hernandez, smiling for the first time since he was born. But that wasn't the only thing that shocked him. The little boy had his hands tangled in a blonde wig that he had just pulled off the girl's head. Guadalupe stood there with her head completely shaved, her eyes wide with fear, desperately trying to cover her head with her free hands. Mr. Fernando, I can explain, she stammered, tears already welling up in her eyes. But before she could say anything else, something extraordinary happened. Sebastian burst out laughing with a crystal clear laugh, a sound that had never come out of that child since he came into the world. The baby played with Guadalupe's shaved head, running his tiny hands over her smooth skin, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Guadalupe, seeing the child's reaction, wiped her tears and whispered in a sweet voice, "Now we are the same, Sebastian. Without hair, but with a lot of love in our hearts." Fernando's breath caught in his throat. The son who had cried nonstop since he was born, who rejected the breasts of all the wet nurses, who never slept well, was there smiling, laughing, and playing. How? How did you get him to stop crying? Fernando asked, his voice breaking. Guadalupe looked at him with a mixture of embarrassment and determination. I think he recognizes someone who has already suffered a lot, who knows what it's like to have to be strong when everything seems lost. Sebastian continued to laugh, now trying to put the wig on his own head. The scene was both funny and moving at the same time. Fernando approached slowly. In the 5 months since his wife Catalina died in childbirth, this was the first time he had seen his son truly happy. Guadalupe had been working in the house for barely 2 weeks, but she had apparently achieved the impossible. "Why are you wearing a wig?" he asked more gently now. Guadalupe hesitated, looking at Sebastian, who was still playing with his little fingers on his shaved head. "It's a long story, Mr. Fernando, one I'd rather keep to myself." At that moment, hurried footsteps echoed down the hallway. Veronica Santibanez appeared at the door, panting. She had been caring for Sebastian since birth and was visibly concerned by the unusual silence. Her eyes widened at the scene. Guadalupe without her wig, Fernando standing like a statue, and Sebastian. Sebastian smiling. But what caught her attention most was the expression on Veronica's face when she looked at Fernando, a mixture of jealousy and possessiveness that went unnoticed by him, but not by Guadalupe. "What's going on here?" Veronica asked, trying to sound professional, but her voice came out harsher than she intended. "I can explain," said Guadalupe, trying to get up with Sebastian still in her arms. "No, stay there," said Fernando. "I want to understand what's going on." Guadalupe took a deep breath and began. "A year ago, I found out I had cancer, blood cancer, which they call leukemia." Veronica instinctively took a step back. Fernando frowned. "The doctors said I had to have chemotherapy." 6 months of heavy treatment. Guadalupe's voice grew quieter. "It was the most difficult period of my life." Sebastian babbled in her arms, completely oblivious to the conversation, playing with what was left of her wig. "I lost all my hair in the first few weeks. I lost a lot of weight. There were days when I thought I wasn't going to make it." Fernando watched her intently. Veronica stood silently in the doorway, her fists clenched. "My mother, Doña Elena, was by my side the whole time. She gave me strength when I wanted to give up." Guadalupe smiled as she remembered. "She always said, 'My daughter, you are stronger than you think.'" "And did it work?" Fernando asked. "Yes, 6 months ago I was discharged from the hospital. I am cured. The doctors said the chances of the cancer returning are very small." Sebastian began to fall asleep in her arms, lulled by her soft voice. "Why didn't you say this when you came to work here?" Guadalupe gave a bitter smile. "Because who is going to hire a cancer survivor to work near a baby? People are afraid even though they know it's not contagious. They're prejudiced. So you lied in the interview," said Veronica, speaking for the first time in a sharp voice. "I didn't lie about anything important," Guadalupe defended herself. "I didn't lie about my ability to work, about my experience, about how dedicated I am." Fernando shook his head slowly. "But why are you saying this now?" Guadalupe looked at Sebastian, who was sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks. Because this little angel of mine showed me that sometimes the truth comes out even when you don't want it to. And why did she hesitate? Because taking care of him these past 2 weeks was the best thing that happened to me after my illness. What do you mean taking care of him? Fernando asked, confused. When I clean his room and he's crying, I sing softly, the same songs my mom sang to me in the hospital, and he always calms down. Veronica took a step forward, clearly irritated. You shouldn't do that. It's not your job to take care of the baby. It's mine. I know, Guadalupe said quickly. I'm sorry. You just look so sad, and I know what it's like to be thin and need affection. Fernando looked at his son sleeping peacefully in the maid's arms. In 3 months of life, he had never seen Sebastian so relaxed. It seems you have a special gift with him. Veronica couldn't hide her irritation. Fernando, I think we need to talk. In private, Guadalupe understood the message, got up slowly, and carefully placed Sebastian in his crib. The baby continued to sleep with a small smile on his face. I'm going back to work, she murmured. But as she was leaving, Sebastian woke up and began to cry. A loud, desperate cry. Guadalupe stopped at the door, her heart in her mouth. Veronica immediately went to the crib, but the crying only got worse. It's just a coincidence, Veronica said, trying to calm the child. He'll get used to it. But Sebastian cried as if he were losing something very important. From the hallway, Guadalupe heard the desperation in the child's voice and knew that by telling the truth, she had just lost the best thing that had ever happened to her. As soon as Guadalupe left, Veronica turned to Fernando with an expression that mixed professional concern with something deeper. Fernando, we need to talk seriously. Sebastian was still crying in his crib. Veronica tried to calm him down, but without success. Talk, said Fernando, taking his son in his arms. The crying subsided a little, but did not stop. Don't you think it's strange that she hid such important information? Cancer isn't a little cold, Fernando, but she said she's cured. That's what she said. But how can we be sure? Veronica moved closer to him. What if it's not true? What if she lied about being cured too? Fernando looked at her, noticing for the first time how nervous Veronica got when they talked about Guadalupe. Why are you so concerned about this? Veronica hesitated. She had been taking care of Sebastian for 5 months. She had been seeing Fernando every day for 5 months. She cried with him when the baby wouldn't stop crying. She comforted him when he was overwhelmed with nostalgia for his wife. Without realizing it, she had fallen in love with her boss. Because I care about you both, she said, trying to sound professional. Taking care of Sebastian is my responsibility, and taking care of you too, in a way. Fernando looked at her strangely. Taking care of me? You've been through so much. You lost Catalina in childbirth. You were left alone with a baby who wouldn't stop crying. I just want to protect you both. Her voice became softer, almost intimate. Fernando began to feel uncomfortable. Veronica, I appreciate your dedication, but no, Fernando. You need someone who is totally honest with you, someone you can trust completely. Sebastian continued to cry. Veronica tried to pick him up again, but the crying grew louder. Why won't he stop crying? Fernando asked in frustration. It will pass. He just got used to her presence for a few days. Children are like that. At that moment, they heard the sound of a song coming from the hallway. Guadalupe was singing softly as she cleaned. Sebastian's crying immediately stopped. The baby turned his head in the direction of the voice, a small smile appearing on his face. Fernando and Veronica stood silently watching the child's reaction. It's just a coincidence, Veronica said quickly. Children are distracted by any noise. But when Guadalupe stopped singing, Sebastian started crying again. That's not a coincidence, Fernando murmured. Veronica felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. She was losing Fernando to a domestic worker, to a woman he had just met. Fernando, listen, I understand that Sebastian's reaction impressed you, but you have to think with your head, not your heart. She moved closer, placing her hand on his arm. A person who hides such important information may hide other things. How can you trust her? Fernando looked at his son, who cried every time Guadalupe walked away. But look at his reaction. Reaction isn't everything. Safety is more important. Veronica's voice became firmer. What if she lied about being cured? What if she's still sick? Can you risk your son's health? For the first time since Guadalupe had told the truth, Fernando felt a pang of fear. What if Veronica was right? What if he was putting his son at risk for a moment of emotion? What do you think he should do? Veronica tried to hide her triumphant smile. I think you should keep your distance until you are absolutely certain that she poses no risk. Sebastian cried louder, as if he could sense the conversation that was sealing his fate. From the hallway, Guadalupe listened to the crying and felt her heart break. She knew she was losing the only good thing that had happened to her since her illness. The next morning, Guadalupe arrived at work feeling a mixture of hope and fear. She had spent the night thinking about her conversation with Fernando, hoping that he would understand her situation. But as soon as she entered the kitchen, she realized that something had changed. The other employees, Don Ramon the gardener and Doña Rosa the cook, stopped talking when they saw her. They looked at her with a strange expression. "Good morning," Guadalupe greeted them. "Good morning," they replied, but no one looked her in the eye. Guadalupe went to get the cleaning supplies when she heard Doña Rosa whisper. "Veronica said she hid an illness. She says it could be dangerous for the baby." "What kind of illness?" Don Ramon asked. "I'm not sure, but it must be something serious." If she hid it. Guadalupe felt her stomach churn. Veronica had spread the story, but in a distorted way. At that moment, the nurse herself appeared in the kitchen. "Guadalupe, come here. I need to talk to you." The two went out into the garden. "Look," Veronica began, feigning a maternal tone. "I understand your situation, but you have to understand mine too." "What situation?" Guadalupe was suspicious. "I am responsible for Sebastian's health, now that I know you hid important medical information." "Veronica, I'm cured, completely cured. I'm not a risk. But how can I be sure? You already lied once. I didn't lie, I hid it. It's different." Veronica gave a fake smile. "It's not different for the other employees. They're worried." "No wonder you told everyone. I only said that you hid important medical information when you were hired, which is true." Guadalupe realized the dirty game Veronica was playing. "Why are you doing this to me?" "Doing what to you?" "Protecting a child." At that moment, Fernando appeared in the garden, walking toward them. Guadalupe felt her heart racing. "Veronica, Sebastian is crying again." "Can you?" He stopped when he saw the two women facing each other. "Actually, Fernando," Veronica said quickly, "I think we should hire a new nanny, someone else, someone trustworthy." "Trustworthy?" Fernando frowned. "Someone who doesn't hide important health information. Someone who is completely transparent." Guadalupe felt her legs go weak. "Veronica, you're overreacting." "I'm being cautious. It's my duty." Fernando looked from one to the other. From the baby's room, the sound of Sebastian's crying began to echo through the mansion. "Desperate crying. He's been crying since he woke up," said Veronica. "I already called a new nanny. She has all her references in order and will arrive this afternoon." Fernando hesitated, looking at Guadalupe. Maybe it's better to be sure of everything." "Sure of what?" Guadalupe asked, feeling the tears well up. "That you don't pose any risk to my son?" The words hit Guadalupe like a slap in the face. After everything that had happened, after opening up, after the real connection she had created with Sebastian, they were pushing her away again. The baby's crying grew louder, more desperate. "He needs me," Guadalupe whispered. "He needs security," Veronica replied, "and you can't guarantee that." Sebastian cried even harder, as if he could sense that he was losing his only source of affection. Fernando closed his eyes, torn. "Guadalupe, until you are absolutely certain that there is no risk, it is best not to go near Sebastian." Guadalupe felt her world collapse for the second time in her life. But now it was not her body that was betraying her. It was the distrust of someone she had begun to respect. "Please, Mr. Fernando, this is my final decision." Veronica could barely hide her smile of satisfaction. From above, Sebastian's crying echoed through the mansion like a cry for help that no one seemed willing to hear. Guadalupe looked one last time toward the window of the child's room and knew that the war was just beginning. Guadalupe spent the afternoon cleaning the house with a broken heart. Every time she passed Sebastian's room, she heard his desperate crying. Veronica was in there trying unsuccessfully to calm him down. "Come on, Sebastian, stop crying. Auntie is here," Veronica said, but the baby only cried louder. The other employees avoided Guadalupe. Doña Rosa didn't even greet her when she passed through the kitchen. Don Ramon looked away when they crossed paths in the hallway. "Please," Guadalupe tried when she was in the service area. "Can I explain?" "You don't need to explain anything to us," Doña Rosa said dryly. I just don't want to get infected. Do you understand? But I'm cured. 6 months ago, cured or not, you lied. How can we trust you? Guadalupe felt the tears coming. It was as if she were experiencing the prejudice she had always been afraid to face. At 3 p.m., an elegant woman arrived at the mansion. Her hair was pulled back in a perfect bun, her clothes were impeccable, and she carried a briefcase in her hand. Good afternoon, I'm Patricia Mendoza, the new nanny. Veronica greeted her with a broad smile. I'm so glad you're here. Come on, I'll introduce you to Sebastian. Guadalupe watched from a distance as Veronica showed the new employee around the house. Do you have experience with 3-month-old babies? Veronica asked. 15 years of caring for small children. I have all the certifications. Perfect. The baby cries a little, but I'm sure you will be able to handle him. When they entered Sebastian's room, the crying stopped for a few seconds. Guadalupe felt a twinge of hope. Maybe Sebastian would accept the new nanny, but it only took 5 minutes for the crying to start again, even louder. Is he hungry? Patricia asked. He just ate. It must be colic. The crying continued. Guadalupe, who was cleaning the hallway, had to control herself not to go into the room. I can try, Patricia offered. Sure, feel free. Guadalupe listened to the new nanny trying everything. She sang, rocked him, and cuddled him. Nothing worked. When Fernando returned from work 2 hours later, Sebastian was still crying. How was it today? He asked Veronica. Patricia is very professional. It will just take time for Sebastian to get used to her. Fernando entered the room and found the new nanny visibly tired. I'm sorry, Mr. Iturbide. I've never seen such a difficult baby. I've tried everything I know. Fernando took his son in his arms. The crying subsided a little, but did not stop completely. From the hallway, Guadalupe watched the scene. Her heart broke seeing Sebastian so distressed. It will pass, said Veronica, but her voice sounded less confident. It's just a matter of time. At that moment, Guadalupe began to hum softly in the hallway, the same song she always sang to Sebastian. Immediately, the crying stopped. Sebastian turned his little head in the direction of the voice, a small smile appearing on his face. Fernando, Veronica, and Patricia fell completely silent. This is, Patricia began. Coincidence, Veronica quickly finished. Just coincidence. But when Guadalupe stopped singing, Sebastian began to cry desperately again. Fernando looked at Veronica with an expression she couldn't decipher. Maybe we should reconsider this, right? Veronica's response came out louder than she intended. I mean, we can't make decisions based on emotions. Sebastian's safety comes first. But for the first time, Fernando began to question whether he was making the right decision. In the days that followed, the situation only got worse. Sebastian cried almost all the time. Patricia was desperate and began to question her own abilities. Mr. Iturbide, in 15 years of caring for children, I've never been through a situation like this, she confessed on Thursday morning. Fernando had deep, dark circles under his eyes. The sleepless nights were taking their toll. Do you think there's something wrong with him? Some kind of illness? I don't know, maybe we should find a pediatrician. Guadalupe, who cleaned the ground floor, heard everything and felt useless. She knew she could help, but she was forbidden from approaching them. While cleaning, she overheard a conversation between Veronica and Patricia in the hallway. Look, I'm going to be honest, Patricia said. This baby is not normal. I've never seen such a difficult child. He went through trauma, explained Veronica. He lost his mother during childbirth. It's complicated. Even so, it seems like he's rejecting everyone as if he's attached to someone specific. Veronica tensed up. What do you mean? I'm not sure, but when that girl sang yesterday, he stopped crying immediately. Maybe she has a way with children. Forget about it, said Veronica Sica. She can't go near Sebastian. It's dangerous. Dangerous. How? She has health problems. It could be bad for the baby. Patricia frowned. What kind of problems? I'd rather not go into details. Just trust me. Guadalupe walked away before she was seen, but she had heard enough. Veronica was spreading lies about her. Later, when she was cleaning the living room, Fernando appeared with Sebastian in his arms. The baby was crying softly, a tired and sad cry. Guadalupe, Fernando said hesitantly. She stopped cleaning immediately. Yes, Mr. Fernando, I can ask a question. Of course. Are you absolutely sure that it poses no risk to Sebastian? Guadalupe felt a twinge of hope. I have all the tests that prove I'm cured. I can show them to you. Sebastian, who had been crying softly, stopped completely when he heard Guadalupe's voice, turned his head toward her, and stretched out his little arms. Fernando watched his son's reaction closely. He remembers you. I think so. We formed a bond over these 2 weeks. Can you sing something? Just to see his reaction. Guadalupe looked around, afraid that Veronica would appear. She shouldn't, please, just one song. Guadalupe began to hum softly the song that always calmed Sebastian. It was a simple song that her mother used to sing to her. Sleep, little angel. Sleep in peace. Mommy is here, and she's not going anywhere. Sleep comes to embrace you, and dreams will lull you. Sebastian not only stopped crying, but began to smile. He stretched his little arms even further toward Guadalupe, making little noises of joy. Fernando was moved to see his son's transformation. How is this possible? I think he feels that I understand his sadness, that I know what it's like to go through difficult times. At that moment, hurried footsteps echoed down the hallway. Veronica appeared in the living room and saw the scene. What's going on here? Her voice was laden with poorly concealed anger. I just asked him to sing, Fernando explained. Look at his reaction. Fernando, we've already talked about this. You can't risk your son's health for a nice moment. But look how calm he is. What if she lied about being cured and is still sick? Veronica approached Fernando. You could be risking your son's life. Sebastian, sensing the tension in the air, began to cry again. Go, said Veronica. He senses when something is wrong in the atmosphere. Guadalupe walked away feeling defeated once again. Sorry for bothering you, she muttered. Guadalupe, wait, Fernando began, but Veronica interrupted him. Patricia is waiting for Sebastian in the room. She needs to keep up her routine. Fernando hesitated, but ended up going upstairs with the baby. Sebastian cried the whole way, looking over his father's shoulder at Guadalupe. Alone in the living room, Guadalupe felt she was losing a battle she didn't even know she was fighting. A week later, the situation was critical. Sebastian barely slept, ate little, and cried almost nonstop. Fernando was desperate. Doctor, he's lost weight, Fernando told the pediatrician during the consultation. I'm very worried. The doctor examined Sebastian carefully. Physically, he's fine, but I see signs of a lot of stress. Stress in a 3-month-old baby. Babies are more sensitive than we imagine. Has anything changed in your routine recently? Fernando thought. The only significant change had been sending Guadalupe away. We changed nannies a week ago. That may explain everything. If he formed a strong bond with the previous person, the separation may be causing this behavior. But the person hid important information about her health. What kind of information? She had breast cancer. She has been cured for 6 months, but she didn't mention it when we hired her. The doctor frowned. If she is truly cured, she poses no risk to the baby. Cancer is not contagious. Fernando felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. Are you sure? Absolutely. In fact, people who have been through serious illnesses generally take better care of others. That may be why your son became so attached to her. When they returned home, Fernando was deeply disturbed. He found Veronica trying to bottle feed Sebastian, who was completely rejecting it. How is he? Fernando asked. He doesn't want to eat almost anything. Patricia said he only drank a little from his bottle this morning. Sebastian was visibly thinner. His little eyes were dull, as if he had lost the will to live. Veronica, I need to tell you what the doctor said. She tensed up. What did he say? That cancer isn't contagious, that if Guadalupe is cured, she poses no risk. Veronica swallowed hard. But she lied, Fernando said. How can we trust him? He didn't lie about being cured. The doctor confirmed it. Sebastian began to cry again, a weak, tired cry. He's wasting away, Veronica. He's losing weight. He's not eating well. He's not sleeping. It's going to happen. It's only a matter of time. But Fernando was no longer so sure. He looked out the window and saw Guadalupe in the garden cleaning the outside area. Even from a distance, he could see the sadness in her movements. What if we made a mistake? What kind of mistake? What if we separate Sebastian from the person he considers, the person he sees as his mother? Veronica felt panic rising. Fernando, you're being emotional. You can't make decisions based on feelings. What about you? What are your decisions based on? The question took Veronica by surprise. She hesitated too long before answering that they were based on Sebastian's safety. But for the first time, Fernando noticed something strange in her tone, something he couldn't identify, but which made him question whether Veronica was being completely honest with him. Sebastian continued to cry, and Fernando had the feeling that he was failing as a father by not listening to what his son was trying to tell him. On Monday morning, Fernando woke up to an eerie silence. For weeks, he had grown accustomed to Sebastian's constant crying, so the stillness alarmed him. He ran to his son's room and found a terrifying scene. Sebastian was in his crib, pale and breathing slowly. He seemed too weak even to cry. "Veronica, Patricia," he shouted. The two of them came running. "My God," whispered Patricia, "he's very weak." Veronica took Sebastian in her arms. The baby was hot and clearly dehydrated. "We have to take him to the hospital now," said Fernando, grabbing his car keys. The drive to the hospital was agonizing. Sebastian was almost unconscious in Veronica's arms as she tried to keep him awake. "Come on, Sebastian, stay awake, my boy," she whispered. Fernando drove at high speed, his heart racing. At the hospital, the doctors took Sebastian immediately to the emergency room. "What happened?" asked the doctor who attended to them. "He hasn't been eating well for a week. He cries all the time, and today he woke up like this," explained Fernando. "We're going to run some tests. You can wait outside." Fernando paced back and forth in the waiting room. Veronica sat visibly nervous. "He'll be fine," she tried to comfort him. "How can you be sure?" "Because he's strong, he'll get through this." After an hour that seemed like an eternity, the doctor returned. "The baby is dehydrated and showing signs of severe emotional stress." "Emotional stress in a baby?" Fernando asked, alarmed. "It's more common than we think. It usually happens when they are separated from someone important to them." Fernando felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. "What does that mean?" "It means that he probably formed a very strong bond with someone and is suffering from the separation." Veronica turned pale. But, but that will pass, right? It can happen if the person returns to live with him. If not," the doctor hesitated. "In such young babies, this type of stress can be dangerous." At that moment, Fernando knew exactly what he had to do. "I need to make a call." He left the waiting room and called home. "Guadalupe, it's Fernando. I need you to come to San Jose Hospital now. Sebastian is in the hospital." On the other end of the line, Guadalupe felt like the world had stopped. "What happened to him? I'll explain when you get here. Please come quickly. I'm on my way." When Fernando returned to the waiting room, he found Veronica visibly agitated. "What did you do?" "I called Guadalupe." "Fernando, you can't." "Nothing, Veronica. My son is suffering without the person he considers important. I'm not going to let him suffer anymore. But security, the greatest insecurity for him now, is being away from the one he loves." 20 minutes later, Guadalupe came running down the hospital corridor. She was panting, her eyes red. "How is he?" "Dehydrated and emotionally stressed from the separation." Guadalupe felt tears welling up. "I can see him. He's what I love most in the world." Veronica tried one last move. "Fernando, think carefully about what you're doing." But he was already walking towards Sebastian's room with Guadalupe by his side. When they entered the room, they saw Sebastian hooked up to IVs, pale and fragile in his hospital crib. Guadalupe approached slowly and began to hum softly the song that always calmed him. "Sleep, little angel. Sleep in peace." Dazed and weak, Sebastian opened his little eyes. When he saw Guadalupe, a small, fragile smile appeared on his face. "Mommy's here," she whispered, gently stroking his forehead. Fernando watched the scene with teary eyes. For the first time in weeks, his son seemed at peace. From the hallway, Veronica watched through the glass, knowing she was losing the war she herself had started. With Guadalupe in the room, Sebastian began to recover quickly. Within a few hours, he managed to drink a full bottle and slept for the first time in days. "It's amazing," the doctor told Fernando. "The improvement was immediate after she arrived. That means she is clearly very important to him." It's as if she were his mother figure. Fernando looked through the glass window of the room and saw Guadalupe singing softly to Sebastian, who was sleeping peacefully in her arms. "Doctor, she had breast cancer a year ago. She has been cured for 6 months. Is that dangerous for my son?" "Not at all. People who have been cured of cancer pose no risk whatsoever." When Fernando returned to the room, he found Veronica confronting Guadalupe. "Are you happy now? Did you manage to manipulate everything to come back?" "Ah, manipulate. Guadalupe got up, still carrying Sebastian. I didn't manipulate anything. I just came because they called me. You made this baby dependent on you on purpose. What dependence? I just took care of him with love. Fernando entered the room. Veronica, that's enough. The doctor confirmed that she poses no risk. And you're going to believe it just because a doctor said so. Doctors make mistakes, and you're a doctor yourself, so you should know. For the first time, Guadalupe decided to respond. You know what, Veronica? From day one, you tried to keep me away from Sebastian, and now I know why. Why? Veronica challenged her, because you're in love with Fernando. The room fell completely silent. Fernando looked from one woman to the other, finally understanding everything. It's true, he asked Veronica. I care about both of you. Isn't that what I asked? Are you in love with me? Veronica hesitated, but the pressure was too great. And if I were, is it a crime to care about someone? To be devoted? Being devoted, no. Lying and manipulating to drive away someone my son needs. That is a problem. I didn't lie. You spread the rumor throughout the house that I had a contagious disease, Guadalupe said firmly. You told the employees that I was dangerous. That's not a lie. I only said that you hid medical information. You insinuated that you could infect Sebastian, that you weren't really cured. That is a lie. Fernando finally shook his head, seeing everything clearly. Veronica, you manipulated everything out of jealousy. Not jealousy, out of love. I love you, Fernando. I've been taking care of you and Sebastian for months. I deserve a chance based on lies, putting my son at risk. Sebastian, who had woken up to the raised voices, began to cry. Guadalupe immediately calmed him down. Shh, my love. Everything is fine. Mommy is here. The word mommy hit Veronica like a slap in the face. She is no one's mother. She is just a domestic worker. And you, Fernando said coldly, are just an employee who abused my trust. Guadalupe looked at Veronica with a mixture of pity and determination. Veronica, I understand that you fell in love. It happens, but trying to destroy my life because of it was going too far. Your life and mine. You came here and destroyed everything. I didn't destroy anything. I just took care of Sebastian with love. If that bothers you, that's not my problem. Fernando approached Veronica. I want you to take your things and leave my house today. Fernando, you can't. I can and I will. I don't want you near my son ever again. Veronica looked at Sebastian in Guadalupe's arms, then at Fernando, and realized she had lost everything. You're going to regret this, she said as she left the room. Alone, Fernando looked at Guadalupe. Forgive me for everything. You don't need to apologize. You were protecting your son, but I should have noticed his game sooner. Sebastian babbled something and smiled at them both. I think, said Guadalupe, that the important thing is that we are now a real family. Fernando felt his heart race at the word family, but this time for all the right reasons. 2 days later, when Sebastian had been discharged from the hospital, Fernando came home and found a police car at the door. Mr. Iturbide, we received a report of child abuse. What? One of the police officers showed him a piece of paper. Mrs. Veronica Santabanez filed a report saying that you allow a person with a questionable medical history to care for the child. Fernando felt his blood boil. This is revenge. I fired her 2 days ago. Even so, we need to take a look. May we come in? There was no choice. Fernando let the police officers in. Guadalupe was in the living room playing with Sebastian, who was smiling and babbling happily. You are Guadalupe Hernandez, one of the police officers asked. Yes. Can you show us your medical records? We have information that you concealed serious health problems. Guadalupe turned pale, but she stood her ground. Yes, I can. I have all the results that prove I'm cured. She went to get the folder with her medical documents. The police officers examined everything carefully. According to these tests, you've been cured for 6 months. Exactly. Ah, and why didn't you report this when you were hired? Guadalupe took a deep breath, fearing prejudice. Many people don't hire cancer patients, even if they are cured. The police officer looked at Sebastian, who was smiling in her arms. The child seems well cared for and happy because she takes good care of him, said Fernando. Sebastian was wasting away when he was taken away from her. He had to be hospitalized. The police officers talked among themselves. Then they turned to Fernando. We see no evidence of abuse. The child is visibly well cared for. The complaint appears to be unfounded. That's what I thought. After the police left, Fernando turned to Guadalupe. She's not going to give up easily. I know, but I'm not going to let her intimidate me. That afternoon, while Guadalupe was bathing Sebastian, the phone rang. Hi, Guadalupe. This is Marisa from the hospital where you had your treatment. Hi, Marisa. How are you? Look, a woman called here asking for information about you. She said she worked with you and needed to know details about your treatment. Guadalupe felt her stomach churn. And what did you tell her? Nothing, of course. Medical information is confidential, but I thought it was strange and decided to let you know. Thank you for telling me. When she hung up, Guadalupe realized that Veronica was investigating her medical history, probably looking for something to use against her. That night, Fernando found Guadalupe in the kitchen preparing Sebastian's bottle. Are you worried? Your former employee called the hospital where I was treated. She's trying to get information about me. What kind of information? I don't know, but a woman with a grudge can be very dangerous. As if it were a premonition, the phone rang. Fernando answered. Hello, Fernando. It's Veronica. Guadalupe could hear her voice on the phone. What do you want? To give you some important information about your dear little employee. I'm not interested. You'll be interested when you find out she lied again. Fernando looked at Guadalupe, who tensed up. What are you talking about? Didn't she tell you the whole truth about her cancer, Fernando? Didn't she tell you that it could have consequences? That she might not be able to have children in the future? Fernando hung up the phone. It's true, he asked Guadalupe. Guadalupe lowered her eyes. It's possible. The doctor said there's a possibility. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want you to see me as broken, defective. Fernando moved closer to her. Guadalupe, look at me. She looked up, expecting to see disappointment, but found only understanding. I don't care if you can have other children or not. You saved Sebastian. That's what matters. Guadalupe felt tears welling up. Thank you for understanding, but there can be no more secrets between us. If we are going to take care of Sebastian together, there has to be complete trust. Together, Guadalupe asked, her heart racing. Fernando pulled her toward him. Guadalupe, do you want to be an official part of this family? Before she could answer, the sound of breaking glass echoed through the house. They ran to the living room and saw a rock in the middle of the carpet with a piece of paper tied to it. Fernando opened the note and read quietly, If you can't have me, you won't have peace. Guadalupe hugged Sebastian tighter, realizing that Veronica was far from giving up. The morning after the stone episode, Guadalupe returned to her mother's house devastated. Elena Hernandez welcomed her with open arms, seeing her daughter cry as she hadn't cried since the days of her illness. What happened, my daughter? Mom, I lost everything again. Guadalupe told her mother everything. Her job at the mansion, her connection with Sebastian, the affection they were building with Fernando, and now Veronica's threats. That woman won't stop until she destroys me, and you're going to let her. What can I do? She has more power, more influence, but you have something she will never have, my daughter. What? The truth and the love of that baby. Meanwhile, in the mansion, Fernando paced the living room with Sebastian in his arms. The baby had been crying nonstop since Guadalupe left the night before. He won't stop crying, Fernando muttered to himself. Patricia, who had stayed to help, was clearly tired. Mr. Fernando, I've tried everything. He won't take the bottle, he won't sleep. I know what he wants, said Fernando, looking out the window. He wants Guadalupe. But after what happened yesterday only showed me how dangerous Veronica is and how important Guadalupe is to him. Sebastian cried louder, as if he agreed with his dad. Mr. Fernando, said Patricia hesitantly, can I give an opinion? Of course. In 15 years of babysitting, I've never seen such a strong bond. It's as if she were his real mother. Fernando closed his eyes. He knew Patricia was right. Do you think I'm being irresponsible by letting her take care of him? On the contrary, I think it would be irresponsible not to let her. That afternoon, Fernando made a decision, picked up the phone, and called a private investigator he knew. Ricardo, this is Fernando Turbide. I need an investigation. Sure, Fernando. What do you need? An employee I fired, Veronica Santibanez. I just want to know if she's worked in other homes and how she did. She's threatening my family. I need to know what kind of person I'm dealing with. I understand. I'll see what I can find out this week. Meanwhile, Guadalupe was sitting in the small courtyard of her mother's house, staring at her cell phone. She wanted to call to find out how Sebastian was doing, but she didn't have the courage. Call him, said Elena, sitting down next to her daughter. I can't, Mom. After what happened was that a jealous woman tried to destroy your happiness. That's no reason to give up. What if you're right? What if I'm a problem for Sebastian? My daughter, you fought cancer and you won. Do you really think you can't fight a crazy nurse? Guadalupe smiled for the first time in days. You're right, Mom. You always are. Now go fight for what's yours. That night, Guadalupe gathered her courage and called Fernando. Hi, Fernando. It's Guadalupe. Guadalupe, how are you? Worried. How is Sebastian? He's been crying since you left. He doesn't want to eat properly. He doesn't sleep. Guadalupe felt her heart tighten. Can I at least sing to him over the phone? Sure, he's here next to me. Fernando put the phone close to Sebastian's ear. Guadalupe began to hum the song that always calmed him down. On the other end of the line, the baby's crying stopped immediately. It worked, Fernando said excitedly. He stopped crying. Fernando, I need to tell you something. What? I'm afraid of Veronica, but I'm not going to let her intimidate me. I'm going to fight for Sebastian and for you too. Fernando felt his heart racing. Guadalupe, let me finish. I know we still have a lot to work out, but I want you to know that I fell in love with both of you, and I'm not going to give up easily. So come back home. Our home. A week later, Ricardo called Fernando with some troubling information. Fernando, I got some information about Veronica. Tell me. She's worked in 3 houses in the last 4 years. She was fired from all of them because of problems with her employers. Fernando frowned. What kind of problems? In the first house, she was accused of making the couple jealous. In the second, she tried to seduce the widowed employer and was caught sabotaging his dates with a girlfriend. And in the third, it was worse. The employer's wife began to get sick constantly. She only got better after Veronica was fired. Fernando felt a chill in his stomach. Do you think I can't prove anything, but the boss is worrying. She always chooses families with young children and uses the children to get close to the parents. My God. Fernando, there's something else. I spoke to the doorman of the building where she lives. He says she leaves her house every day at the same time and stands on the street outside your house for hours. Is she following me? It seems so, and she has photos of you and Guadalupe stuck on her refrigerator. Fernando hung up the phone, disturbed. He looked at Sebastian, who was sleeping peacefully after a late-night call from Guadalupe. She's more dangerous than I imagined, my son. That afternoon, Fernando went to Guadalupe's house. He needed to tell her everything and bring her back. When Guadalupe heard about the discoveries regarding Veronica, she was frightened. Is she following me? Ricardo thinks so, and she has photos of us in her house. Fernando, I'm scared. That's why I want you to come home. I can protect you better there. What if she does something to Sebastian to hurt me? That's exactly why you're more vulnerable away from us, and he needs you, Elena. Elena, who had been listening from the kitchen, appeared in the living room. My daughter, go with him. You're alone here. At least there's security there. Mom, what about you? I'm going to stay at your aunt's house for a few days until this situation is resolved. Fernando took Guadalupe's hand. Come home with me, please. Okay, but if she shows up, we'll face her together. Guadalupe returned to the mansion on Friday afternoon. Sebastian was in the nursery when she arrived, and as soon as he heard her voice, he began to babble happily. Hello, my prince, Mommy's back. Fernando watched from the doorway, smiling as he saw them together again. He slept better this week because of your calls, and I slept better knowing he was okay. They went down to the living room and Fernando served her coffee. Guadalupe, I want to talk about something. What? About us? What's going on between us? Guadalupe became nervous. Fernando, let me speak first. I know this all started because of Sebastian, but now it's more than that. For me too. So when all this is over, when Veronica is no longer a threat, would you be willing to try to build something together? A real family? Sebastian, as if he understood the conversation, smiled and stretched his little arms out toward them. I think he's already decided for us, Guadalupe laughed. And what do you decide? I decide that I want to try too. Fernando moved closer to her on the sofa. Can I kiss you? Guadalupe nodded, and they kissed for the first time. A sweet kiss full of promise. Sebastian clapped his hands as if he were approving. That's when the intercom rang, breaking the magical moment. Well, Mr. Fernando, there's a woman down here. She says she's Veronica and wants to talk. Fernando and Guadalupe looked at each other. Tell her I don't want to talk. She said that if you don't come down, she's going to do something you'll regret. I'm not going down. 5 minutes later, the intercom rang again. Mr. Fernando, she's gone, but she left some papers down here. What papers? I don't know. They're in an envelope with your name on it. Fernando went down to the front desk and picked up the envelope. Inside were photos of Guadalupe entering and leaving her home, her mother's house, and even the hospital where she had been treated. There was also a letter. Fernando, do you think you know this woman? Do you know all her secrets? Tomorrow at 3:00 p.m. at the cafe on the corner of your street. Come only if you want to know the whole truth about your little maid. When he returned home, he showed everything to Guadalupe. He's been stalking me for weeks, said Guadalupe, looking at the photos, and he wants to meet me tomorrow. Aren't you going? Yes, I am. I need to end this once and for all. And if it's dangerous, it'll be in a public place, and I'll tell Ricardo to keep an eye out. Guadalupe hugged Sebastian tighter. I just want all this to be over soon. It will be over. I promise. On Saturday at 3:00 p.m., Fernando arrived at the corner cafe. Veronica was already there, sitting at a table in the back with a folder in her hand. I'm glad you came, she said when she saw him. What do you want, Veronica? I want to show you who your beloved little employee really is. Fernando sat down reluctantly. Speak up. Veronica opened the folder and showed him several photographs. Do you recognize this? It was a photo of Guadalupe at a party, apparently from a few years ago. So what? She's at a party. Look at the date, 6 months ago. Fernando looked and saw that the photo was recent. What's the big deal? She told you she finished treatment 6 months ago and was too weak to work, right? That's right. Then explain how she was at a birthday party dancing and drinking when she was supposed to be recovering. Fernando was confused. It could have been after she felt better. Fernando lied about the recovery time. He lied about her being weak. And there's more. Veronica showed him other photos. This is her leaving a motel 3 months ago with a married man. Fernando felt his stomach churn. How did you get these photos? It doesn't matter. What matters is that your saintly little employee isn't so saintly. That doesn't prove anything. She's single. She can date whoever she wants, even knowing the guy is married, even destroying a family. Fernando looked at the photos, not knowing what to think. Why are you showing me this? Because you deserve to know who you're getting involved with, and because that baby deserves a decent mother figure. And you think that's you? I know it's me. I took care of you both for months with dedication, with true love. Fernando shook his head. Veronica, that doesn't justify everything you did. Everything I did was out of love. She's only interested in your money. You don't know her. I know her better than you do. Want to bet? Veronica took out her cell phone and played an audio recording. Listen to this. It was a conversation between Guadalupe and someone else, apparently on the phone. He has a lot of money, Mom. If it goes well, our life will change completely. I just need to gain her trust with the baby. If she falls in love with me, we'll never be in need again. Fernando turned pale when he heard this. This can't be true. It's her voice, Fernando. I recorded it last week when she was in the garden talking on the phone. Fernando got up from the table in shock. I need to go. Think carefully about what you're going to do. You deserve someone who truly loves you, not your money. Fernando left the cafe not knowing what to believe anymore. When Fernando got home, he found Guadalupe playing with Sebastian in the living room. They were laughing, and the scene was so natural, so full of love, that for a moment he forgot the conversation with Veronica. How did it go? Guadalupe asked. Complicated. Fernando sat down heavily on the sofa. She showed me some photos of you. What photos? Of you at a party 6 months ago and leaving a motel? Guadalupe blushed. Fernando, can I explain? And there's more. A recording of you talking about my money. Silence fell over the room. Sebastian, sensing the tension, began to cry softly. Fernando, let me explain everything. Then explain. Guadalupe took a deep breath. The party was real. It was my cousin's birthday 2 months after I finished treatment. I felt alive for the first time in months and wanted to celebrate. And the motel was with a guy I met on an app. Yes, he was married, but I didn't know that. I found out later and ended it immediately. Fernando watched her trying to decide whether to believe her. And the recording about my money. What recording? I never said anything about your money to my mom. Veronica recorded you on the phone. Guadalupe frowned. Fernando, it could have been a conversation about something else that she edited. Or it could be completely fake. The voice sounded a lot like yours. Similar isn't the same. And you yourself said she's obsessed. Sebastian cried harder. Guadalupe took him in her arms. Fernando, look at me. He looked up. If I had been interested in your money, do you think I would have refused every time you tried to give me gifts? Do you think I would have gone back to my mother's house when you fired me? Fernando thought. Guadalupe had always refused any financial help. And more importantly, she continued, do you think I could fake the love I feel for this baby for months? Sebastian had stopped crying and looked at Fernando as if asking him to believe Guadalupe. I don't know what to believe anymore. Then believe what you see, what you feel. Fernando looked at the two of them, at Guadalupe carrying Sebastian so lovingly, at the baby who only smiled when she was near. You swear you were never interested in my money. I swear by everything sacred. I swear on Sebastian's life and on the recording. Fernando, I've been working as a domestic worker for years. I earn my living honestly. If I wanted a rich man, do you think I would look for him in a house where I am employed? It made sense. Fernando began to feel foolish for having doubted her. Forgive me. Veronica managed to plant doubts in my head. Exactly what she wanted. Fernando approached and hugged them both. I'm not going to let her do this again. What do we do now? Now we go to the police. With the photos she has of you, we can prove she's harassing you. Do you think that will stop her? It has to. We can't live like this. But Fernando was wrong. Veronica was far from giving up. On Monday morning, Fernando and Guadalupe went to the police station to file a complaint against Veronica. They took the photos and told them about the threats. We'll investigate, promised the commander. But in the meantime, be careful. Cases of obsession can escalate quickly. When they returned home, they found the apartment door open. Stay behind me, said Fernando, entering slowly. The house was in disarray. Drawers were open, cushions were scattered on the floor, and closets had been ransacked. Sebastian! Guadalupe shouted, running toward the nursery. The baby was in his crib, crying but apparently unharmed. Thank God, she said, picking him up. Fernando checked the rest of the house. Nothing of value was missing, but there was a note on the kitchen table. Now you know what I'm capable of. If you want this to stop, meet me today at 8 p.m. Guatemala in the mall parking lot. Come alone. He broke into our house, said Guadalupe, trembling. He could have hurt Sebastian. That's why this has to end today. Fernando, it could be a trap. It could be. But if we don't go, he'll keep escalating. Next time it could be worse. That night, Fernando and Guadalupe arrived at the mall parking lot at 8 p.m. They left Sebastian with Patricia, who promised to call the police if they didn't hear from them in 2 hours. Veronica was leaning against a black car at the back of the parking lot. I'm glad you both came. What do you want, Veronica? Fernando asked. I want you to stop this happy family charade. It's not a charade. We love each other. Love, Veronica laughed bitterly. You've known each other for 3 weeks. And how long have you loved me? Fernando replied. It's not months, but I took care of you. I dedicated my life to you. Did you dedicate yourself or did you become obsessed? Guadalupe asked. Veronica turned to her with hatred in her eyes. You shouldn't even be here. You should have stayed in your place. My place is with them. Your place is far away from my family. Veronica, said Fernando firmly, it's not your family. It never was. And hers is a domestic worker who lied about everything. She didn't lie about what matters, which is that she loves Sebastian and she loves me. Veronica took something out of her bag. It was an envelope. There's something else you need to know. She threw photos on the floor. They were pictures of Guadalupe in the hospital during treatment. They knew she might not be able to have children, that the treatment could have affected her fertility. Fernando looked at Guadalupe, who lowered her eyes. It's true, she asked him. It's a possibility. The doctors said it could happen. And you didn't tell me because you didn't want me to see you as defective. Fernando took her hand. Guadalupe, that doesn't change anything. Sebastian is already our son. If we can't have others, he is more than enough. What a beautiful scene, Veronica said sarcastically. But you forgot something. What? I'm not going to allow this. Veronica opened the trunk of the car and showed them a can of gasoline. If I can't have the family I want, no one will have a family. Veronica, you're crazy. Crazy in love. And people who are crazy in love do crazy things. Fernando and Guadalupe looked at each other, realizing that the situation had gotten out of control. What do you want us to do? Fernando asked, trying to calm her down. I want her to disappear from your life forever. And if she disappears, will you leave us alone? If she disappears and you give me a chance, yes. Guadalupe looked at Fernando. You're doing this for me, she whispered. Agree to it, and then we'll see what to do. Fernando understood the plan. All right, Veronica, you win. Seriously, Guadalupe is leaving today. Veronica smiled for the first time in weeks. I knew that deep down you would choose me. She put the gasoline in the trunk and approached Fernando. Now we can be a real family. That's when Fernando signaled to Guadalupe, who had already discreetly called the police. Veronica, there's something you need to know. What? I'll never love you. Not today, not ever. The smile disappeared from her face. What do you mean, no? I love Guadalupe. And she's not going anywhere. Veronica became furious. You tricked me. She ran to the car, but the moment she opened the trunk to take the gasoline, police sirens blared through the parking lot. Police, hands up. Veronica stood still for a few seconds, looking from Fernando to Guadalupe, then at the approaching police officers. If I can't have them, she shouted, no one will. She took the gas can and began to pour it on the ground, but the police were faster. Two of them pulled her away before she could light anything. They destroyed my life, she screamed as they handcuffed her. I love them. I took care of them. Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent, said the police officer as Veronica was put in the patrol car, still screaming. Fernando hugged Guadalupe. It's over, he said. Finally over. Are you sure? I'm sure she'll be in prison for a long time. They returned home where they found Sebastian sleeping peacefully in Patricia's arms. How did it go? She asked. She was arrested, said Guadalupe. She won't bother us anymore. Patricia smiled. So now they were safe. Fernando looked at Guadalupe and Sebastian. We can finally breathe easy. Guadalupe took Sebastian in her arms, and he smiled, still asleep, as if he knew the danger had passed. What now? She asked softly. Fernando pulled her close. Now we build our life as it should be, without fear. For the first time in months, they slept peacefully, knowing they were safe. But there was still something important that needed to be said, something that would change their lives forever. 3 weeks after Veronica's arrest, life in the mansion and Turbito had settled into a sweet and peaceful routine. Sebastian was 4 months old and growing quickly, always smiling at Guadalupe. Look at that, said Fernando one sunny morning, watching Guadalupe feed Sebastian his porridge in the kitchen. He's trying to talk, Dad. Pa, Sebastian babbled, looking directly at Guadalupe. I think he's trying to say Dad, she laughed. Or Mom, suggested Fernando, approaching the two of them. The word hung in the air for a moment. Since Veronica had been arrested, they hadn't talked about the future in any definitive way. They lived day to day, enjoying their newfound peace, but without making any concrete plans. Fernando said Guadalupe, wiping Sebastian's mouth, I need to talk to you about something. He felt his stomach churn. She was going to leave. Tell me, it's about my job here as a domestic worker. What's wrong? It doesn't make sense for me to continue being just an employee. No, after everything that's happened. Fernando swallowed hard. Do you want to leave? No, she said quickly. I want to stay, but I want to stay as part of the family, not as a maid. Guadalupe, let me finish. I know it's too soon to talk about these things. I know you may think it's rash, but these months of taking care of Sebastian, living here with you, I feel at home for the first time in my life. Sebastian clapped as if he agreed, and I feel complete for the first time since Catalina died, Fernando confessed. So what do we do? Fernando took her hand. Let's take it slowly, step by step. How about we start by being boyfriend and girlfriend, as we should be? Guadalupe smiled. Boyfriend and girlfriend, at 34 years old with a child to raise? Why not? We deserve to live this as it should be. Okay, let's be boyfriend and girlfriend. Then Sebastian let out a loud laugh as if he approved of the decision. I think Sebastian agrees, said Fernando, kissing Guadalupe on the cheek. That's when the phone rang, breaking the sweet moment. Well, Mr. Iturbide, this is the lawyer. I have news about the case against Veronica Santibanez. Fernando put the phone on speaker so Guadalupe could hear too. What happened, lawyer? She was sentenced. 3 years in prison for threats, harassment, trespassing, and disturbing the peace, plus mandatory psychological treatment throughout the entire period, and the restraining order remains in place. She can't come near you for 10 years after she gets out of prison. Fernando and Guadalupe looked at each other with relief. Thank you for everything, lawyer. Oh, and one last thing, during the trial, she apologized publicly. She said she recognizes that she was ill and that you didn't deserve to go through that. How was she? Apparently calmer. The treatment seems to be working, but it's going to be a long process. After he hung up, Guadalupe hugged Fernando. It's finally over. Yes, now we can build our life without fear. Sebastian began to cry softly. Guadalupe took him in her arms. Hello, my love. What's wrong? Are you sleepy? Papa, Ma. Sebastian tried to say, come on, you're almost there, said Fernando excitedly. Ma, Ma, the baby continued, making an enormous effort. He's trying to say mama, said Guadalupe with teary eyes. Fernando hugged them both, feeling that they could finally breathe in peace. Now we can be happy without looking back. 6 months later, on a Sunday afternoon, Fernando came home from work and found Guadalupe in the garden playing with Sebastian. The baby, now 10 months old, was crawling around on the grass, laughing as she chased him. How was work? She asked when she saw him. Fine, but I'd much rather be here with you. Sebastian saw his dad and quickly crawled toward him. Papa, he said clearly, stretching out his little arms. He said, Daddy, Fernando shouted, taking his son in his arms. You heard him, he said. Yes, I heard him. And yesterday he managed to say mommy all by himself. Seriously, I swear. I was giving him a bath and suddenly he looked at me and said, Mama. Fernando turned around with Sebastian in his arms, who laughed loudly. My son is becoming a chatterbox. They went into the house and after feeding Sebastian and putting him to bed, Fernando called Guadalupe into the garden. I want to talk about something, he said, looking nervous. Is everything okay? Yes, it is. In fact, it's perfect. And that's what I want to talk about. He knelt on the ground and took a small box out of his pocket. Guadalupe Hernandez, will you marry me? She stood there for a few seconds, staring at the box, unable to react. Guadalupe, I know we said we were going to take it slow, but these past few months have shown me that I want nothing more in life than you and Sebastian. You are my family, but if you think it's too soon, we can get engaged and wait until next year to get married. I'm in no rush. I just want you to know that this is forever. Guadalupe also knelt down on the grass, coming up to his height. Fernando, I accept. Of course I accept. Seriously, seriously, I don't want anything more than you two either. He put the ring on her finger. It was simple but beautiful when we got married. How about in 6 months? I want to have a small but nice party with my mom and your friends. Perfect. From the bedroom, they heard Sebastian crying softly. He must have sensed that something special was happening. Guadalupe laughed. Let's tell him. They went upstairs together and found Sebastian awake in his crib, looking toward the door as if he were waiting for them. Hello, my love, said Guadalupe, picking him up in her arms. Guess what? Mommy and Daddy are getting married. Music, Sebastian babbled, Mapi, and clapped his hands. I think he approved, Rio Fernando. Now we are a complete family. 6 months later, on a sunny Saturday afternoon, the Iturbide mansion was decorated with white and yellow flowers. It wasn't a big party, but it was perfect. Guadalupe looked at herself in the bedroom mirror, adjusting the simple but elegant dress she had chosen. At her side, Elena adjusted her veil. My daughter, you look radiant. I'm nervous, Mom. It's normal, but look how far you've come. From the hospital to unemployment. All the way here. You're a warrior. Sometimes I still can't believe all this is happening. You can believe it. You deserve it. A knock on the door interrupted them. It was Patricia with Sebastian in her arms. The boy, now a year and 4 months old, was all dressed up in a blue suit. The groom is getting anxious downstairs, she laughed. And Sebastian, How is he trying to say wedding all the time? It comes out something like wedding. Guadalupe took her son in her arms. Today, Mommy and Daddy are getting officially married. You're going to be our page boy, Beau, said Sebastian clearly, making everyone laugh. He learned a new word, Elena observed. Down in the mansion's garden, Fernando was adjusting his tie for the 10th time. Ricardo, the detective who had become his friend, was at his side as his best man. Relax, brother, it's almost over. What if he changes his mind at the last minute? After everything they've been through, that's impossible. The music began to play. It was the same song Guadalupe always sang to Sebastian, but in an instrumental version. The few guests turned toward the entrance of the house. First Patricia appeared, then Sebastian, walking alone with Elena's help, carrying the rings on a small cushion. He stumbled once but continued determinedly. "Dad!" he shouted when he saw Fernando, eliciting laughter from everyone. And finally Guadalupe. Fernando felt his eyes fill with tears when he saw her. She was beautiful, with a smile that lit up the entire garden. When she reached his side, Fernando whispered, "You look perfect." The priest, a friendly man whom Fernando had known for years, began the ceremony. "We are gathered here to celebrate the union of Fernando and Guadalupe, who are already a family in their hearts, but today they are making it official." Sebastian, in Elena's arms, began to babble as if he wanted to participate. "Beau, he said loudly, making everyone laugh. "Fernando," the priest continued, "do you take Guadalupe as your wife, to love her in joy and in sorrow, in health and in sickness?" "I do, and I promise to be the best husband and father I can be." "Guadalupe, do you take Fernando as your husband, to love him in joy and in sorrow, in health and in sickness?" "I do, and I promise to care for our family with all my love." "The rings, please." Sebastian tried to hand over the rings by himself, but ended up dropping one. Fernando picked it up from the floor, laughing. "Thank you, son." When Fernando put the ring on Guadalupe's finger, she was crying with emotion. "With this ring, I take you as my wife. With this ring, I take you as my husband. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." The kiss was sweet, full of love. The guests applauded, but the most beautiful sound came from Sebastian. "Dad, Mom," he shouted, clapping his hands. "First family photo," said the photographer. The three of them posed together, Fernando and Guadalupe kissing, and Sebastian between them, making faces at the camera. It was the perfect image of a family that had overcome all difficulties. Later, during the small party, Sebastian went from person to person, showing off his parents. "My dad, my mom," he said proudly to anyone who would listen. "He's showing off," laughed Ricardo. "And rightly so," said Fernando. "He helped make this family happen." When night fell and the few guests left, Fernando, Guadalupe, and Sebastian were left alone in the garden. "What now?" asked Guadalupe. "Now we live one day at a time, being happy." Sebastian, tired from the party, curled up between the two of them on the garden bench. "Sleep, little angel, sleep in peace," Guadalupe began to sing softly. "Mommy is here, and she's not going anywhere," continued Fernando, who had learned the song. "Sleep comes to embrace you, and dreams will lull you." They finished together. Sebastian fell asleep right there between his parents under the stars. It was the perfect ending to a long journey of overcoming adversity, love, and family. Did you like this story? Do you think Veronica got what she deserved? Do you think Guadalupe did the right thing in forgiving and moving on? Tell me in the comments. Until the next story. M.